Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is February 10th, 2026. Appreciate y'all being here live. Thanks, everybody, jumping into the comments already. Today, I'm here with Beth and Andy. Beth, can you toggle back on our names? I might have accidentally toggled that off. It was there. Yeah, I think I hit the wrong button there. But anyway, Beth and Andy, and I'm Brian, and we'll see if anybody else pops in. I'm here for a little bit today, and we'll see how far the show goes after. Andy has thrown down the gauntlet to see if we can pull off a 30-minute show. We will see if that happens. So with that in mind, why don't we jump into it? Now, I was not here with you guys yesterday, so I don't know what news you picked up. So I did try to pick up just one quick one that I found interesting, and honestly, it's on my phone because that's where I initially found it. So just give me a second. But it's basically a Claude code helper. And what it claims to do, it's called Claude-Mem for memory. And it's supposed to solve for consistent memory across your chats. Now, this is something that piqued my interest because it's something I actually deal with, in the RAL files and the Claude.md for any of those people working with Claude code. I'm not sure how this works with co-work, but it does make it challenging, even with the repo. It even makes it challenging to go chat to chat. It's not that Claude can't go read the Claude code or Claude.md file, which helps, but I found that you have to be pretty specific about saying, let's wrap up this chat so that I can have a prompt that gets me started. Even in then, there seems to be a little bit of loss in terms of how much Claude remembers. I've definitely seen I don't know if you guys have been using it, but I've definitely seen the impact of 4.6, Opus 4.6 in terms of the 1 million context window. Without a doubt, I can see that I can go longer in a conversation and it seems to hold a little bit, and then you can kind of see it gets a little fuzzy and it'll say, oh, I forgot we were doing that. It'll be some critical thing I needed it to remember. So that's a little concerning. But anyway, it's called Claude.m. You can get to it by going, this is the docs file. So let's just see here really quick. It's on GitHub from...
Yeah, I have I've had a tab open to Claude-Mem for a week. Or so.
Oh, okay. All right. So you know more of it than I do.
Quite intentionally, because I plan to add it to my Claude code setup, but I haven't done it yet. And it's at github.com/the.mac, the.mack, not a real dot, the word dot, the.mac/Claude-mem. That's where you can find it, and maybe you can post that link. But it's related in my mind to the whole idea of recursive LLMs, which are LLMs that use a Python REPL as an outboard memory and then manage a large context window more effectively, because there's this thing called context rot. But a recursive model takes these things that it's captured on files and puts them into the thing in a systematic fashion. And similarly, Claude-Mem is going to capture the context that is often visible to you when you're doing Claude code, and it does a compaction. When it reaches the limit of its context window, it says, okay, I'm gonna have to stop here and create a little summary and pass that on to the next iteration of this session. Mm-hmm. And Mem is going to do even more than that. It's not going to just do a simple compaction and kind of toss the ball forward. It's going to have a major repository built for your Claude sessions that creates a longer term memory about what you're doing with Claude code.
And so Andy, sorry, I had follow-up questions, but go for it, Beth.
No, because I want to talk about my version of this. Did not know this existed, so keep going here.
Okay, well, I just have questions, and I don't know, Andy or Beth, if you know the answers to it. What I have up on the screen is the get started with Claude-Mem, because this is how it works. So it says the full cycle. It's kind of what you just said. I don't want to reiterate what you just said, Andy, but it does say every time Claude uses a tool, it captures the read, write, edit, bash, glob, grep. I will tell you, glob and grep were things I did not know existed until I started using Claude Code. I have learned a lot over the last month, but I see globs and bashes, and now I even find myself saying, go run that bash for me. And I feel very cool when I say it because I am no coder, but you can't help but learn along the way. I mean, you just can't help. If you read enough of what it's sending you, you're going to learn.
You bash that bash, Claude. Go you.
Yeah, listen. I've learned a lot. I'll say that. Session summaries, to your point, Andy. When you start a new Claude Code session, the session start hook queries the database for recent observations in your project. It says default is 50, retrieves recent session summaries for context, displays observations in chronological timeline. Okay, shows full summary. Okay, so here's my question to this, Andy, or Beth, what you've created. I'll take this off the screen. This on paper, digital website looks to me to be very similar what like I had built initially with like a Ralph file, which is just a way of summarizing what's going on so that you didn't have to just crush your context right off the bat with Claude going through and reading every single file. Totally on board with all of that. But I guess I don't see the moat or the secret sauce here. Is it the compaction, Andy? Do you think it's like, is that it? Is that it's going to save me tokens in some unique way that I couldn't do I don't want to say couldn't do myself, but like that this is going to do better for me? Is that the impression you get?
Well, there's definitely a compression that happens, and they use the Claude AI agent-STK to do that compression. So there's AI compression happening on the context that's being retained. And Claude is reviewing all of that at the beginning of each new session that you're doing. So it's, and I think that I haven't implemented it yet, but I think you can actually go in and edit that to some degree, so that if it starts to be something that where you're doing Claude sessions, every day a new one, for 20 weeks, maybe this thing gets a little large and it could become costly in terms of the context tokens that are being injected at the beginning of the session. But it is actively compressing that. So I think that that's one of the advantages of this. And there are alternative ways to accomplish this. But this one is one that's been kind of reviewed out there, and it's got a lot of GitHub stars, 27,000 stars. So there's a number of people have used it, and so it is effective.
So one of the things that makes me interested in what you're saying is that the compound engineering plugin does that for the project, right? So there's a process. You go, you code, you do the thing. Really, realistically, you plan for a really long time. Then you do work, which is the tiniest part of it. Then you review the work that you did, and then you compound the learning. And that is kind of the process of that. So that exists for me in terms of the plan. But what I found was I want Claude to learn how to work with me. So there's a whole learning piece about working with Beth.
Yeah.
There's a whole learning piece about like the compaction. I'm like, yeah, no, we're missing gold. So I have a gold skill that is like, go back and find my words that made sense, so that I like those would become posts kind of things, right? Like this conversation. And I've said that before in those conversations, like, hey, we're doing a meta process. We're doing things, and then we're looking at how we did the things and how we can learn better to work together and that kind of thing. And that's going really well, actually. But I have like a start, a save, a done kind of thing. And again, the Beth notes, because the other thing that I'm doing with this is I have, this is not new to you guys, but I have at least 7 ideas every day. Right? Yeah. I'm like, hey, can we put this in the idea codex card catalog? Here are the details I've got. I don't want to lose it. Maybe we come back to it. Maybe we don't. And those kinds of things that I think are more helpful for me in terms of the learning than just compacting or saving everything, because everything doesn't have the same weight for me.
Well, therein lies the biggest AI problem. Is a universal all-knowing memory is not actually the solution Rarely. And that's something we've talked about a lot on the show, right? Which is that it's a much trickier problem than saying just make the context window 10 million, 200 million, a billion. Yeah, unless it's got needle in the haystack ability to run through that and find the bigger overarching pieces. And I will tell you, and by the way, I'm sure with more knowledge, I'm getting better at this. I will learn how to do this better with Claude Code because it is a learning process, and I'm even a month in, I'm still new. I put in some hours, but I'm new. And so what I would say that I feel like I need more than maybe a Claude Mem sort of helps with this, but just before we move on to the news, I would just say really quickly, like, I almost need Claude Code to have like this grounding paragraph, let's say, no more than a paragraph. That is the overarching goal. The way that when Gemini 3.0 came out and it was like, oh, it wants overarching goals. And it's saying, hey, if you give me this umbrella, I will stay below the umbrella. I will not step out into the rain. I always understand the area underneath the umbrella. And that's so important. And I was like, that was mind blowing to me that Gemini 3 was, and then 5.2 got there, right, with ChatGPT. Okay. I need more of that inside of Claude Code, and I am sure there's probably a solution to this, but what I'm saying is, and maybe other people have felt this listening to this, where I feel like Claude Code suffers is it gets lost in the weeds. It does not continuously have, unless you really work at it, to have that 10,000 foot view. And so it gets way down in the trees, and it goes, there's a disease on this bark of this tree. And it goes after it. And you go, I agree. There's a disease on the bark of that tree. However, it's one of 1,000 trees, and all things considered, it is, if you go fix that right now and chop down that tree to alleviate the bark, you've also created this other problem. Now, when you stop, and I've had to have many whisper flow conversations with Claude about this and go, hold on a second, remember what our overarching goal is. This is a tool for thousands potentially of YouTube creators to use, right, in my particular project. And it goes, oh, you're right. And then it will reevaluate its plan. I would love it if Claude Code could do a better job of almost like injecting that, almost like a system instruction, honestly. But I don't know, maybe there's a better way to do it. It's neither here nor there. It's maybe something we could discuss more. If other people in the comments maybe, have ideas for that. But that's where I feel like it falls down for me a little bit is, remember what the overarching goal is here, because it affects these small little changes. If you just focus on the small change, you can have bad ripple effects because you fix one problem and cause 10 more, and look, this is all a great learning exercise. I think everybody is going to go through these pains. This is why we're telling everybody, go play with these tools, because, whether it's Nate Jones or really anybody, everybody's kind of saying the same thing. And yes, I understand if you're a plumber or if you're a conductor for an orchestra, you may not have this same experience in the next 5 years. You may be a little bit protected from this AI sweeping change. Maybe, right? I get that. But for the people who are working remotely, sitting behind desks, doing a lot of the work, working with SaaS companies and stuff like that, you're going to be project managing with multiple agents. It's inevitable, I feel like. And so the pain that I'm going through and the missteps I'm taking with this project, I know are also helping me reorganize my brain and go, I should have done better with how I explain that, because I'm not talking to a human. I'm talking to AI. And that means I have to handle it in this way. Do you guys feel like that too? Like it sucks. It's the pain of it, and it's a struggle, and it aches and it hurts, and you lose money sometimes because you paid for tokens you didn't want to, or you misstep, or you quite literally lose 7 days worth of effort because you went down the wrong path. But Andy, you've said this back to me too, as I've been like, I don't know if this project's where I want. And you've always been really great and positive in terms of saying, yes, but think about what you're learning. This is not for nothing. This is not nothing. Even if it fails, it's not nothing, because look what you're learning on how to do. And if I was to really step back, I go, I'm learning how to handle and orchestrate multi-agents consistently with more and more efficiency. And that makes me future-proof, right?
Yeah. Yes. I want to respond to what Gwyn's posting to the chat, which is, why can't you put a markdown file into the Claude directory and add to your Claude.md file an instruction that says, always before responding, review this file, right? And so you create a markdown file that is your overarching project mission for Claude Code right now. And you'll update it and change it to a new project later. But add to your Claude.md file, which it does review every single time. Add the instruction, look at another file.
Because that would be my responses. I'm not saying, by the way, you might be exactly right, Gwen or Andy. My impression, though, is in my working with it does review the Claude.md file. I do not get the impression it's looking at that Claude.md file before every new action it takes or new plan it puts out there. I don't get that impression.
And I don't know just how repeated its review of that is, but you could add to the Claude.md file that before you respond to any query, you need to go back and review the Claude.md file, which is a very small file.
It is,
It's measured in.
I'm going to try it. There's no harm in this, right? I'm going to try it, and I'll report back if I get some. I'm
suggesting you have two separate files, Claude.md, and then you also have a project objective file. And in your Claude.md file, you tell it to look at the project objective file periodically.
I'm going to do that.
And per project, right? I know that right now there's a main project that all of us are working on, but ultimately you'll likely have multiple projects. And Brian, you probably already do because you work for people that you produce things for.
Well, what I was going to say to that is what we know with this latest releases from, which is not news. I'm sure you guys have already talked about it if I was off the show, but Anthropic released a few more Claude Code tools, and one of those was Agent Teams, and that goes to that point, right? What I would ultimately do is I would have an overarching project file, but then I would have 5 or 6 probably subtasks. Some of this stuff is user facing, right? Like Andy knows, I will one day, because I'm just trying to switch what I'll get really heavily focused on what is the user experience going to be like, because it's so important to me. But that's its own little project, right? It has to know what the larger project is, but then it also needs to know what this sub project is. And so to your guys' point, and to Gwen, great idea. That's probably the better way to do this. And, like anything else, you go, if I started again, I would do this differently. And so there's a lot of things rolling in my head about like how I would do this from scratch the next time, the next project or whatever. So anyway, all right. So what else? I got about another 10 minutes here. So why don't you guys go? What other news you have from the last 24? That was my big one. I just thought that was interesting, but good to know, Andy, that Claude Mem has kind of been around for a bit here. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of buzz in the newsletters today about ByteDance, the AI company in China that is the developer of TikTok. So they have a very large profile in the world, but as well, they are one of the leading AI companies in China. And they've just released a video generation platform that's currently available only in China. But it's called Seedance 2.0. And here's what the Neuron newsletter said about that. It has native audio generation, lip synced speech, 2K resolution, and quality that makes Google's VO 3.1 and OpenAI's Sora 2 look like they're running on a flip phone. That's casting some serious shade on some serious video generation platforms. Yeah. And so Seedance is really getting a viral buzz right at the moment because it's really, really capable.
And the people are talking about the 1-2 punch of Kling 3.0 dropping, and then this Seedance, and particularly that it's dropped but not accessible to the US, which is just creating like, I want it. When do we get it? Who can we get it from? What is happening?
FOMO.
Max,
yeah, can I bring up this 10-second clip I just found from it? Because I think, it doesn't look like Sora. This is impressive, actually. Here we go, real quick. And there's a sound on it too. So let me make this big. There we go. That's much better. Let's get our sound up. Yep. Okay, here we go. I'll play it one more time. It's only 10 seconds long. Okay, so it looks like, like a little 10-second clip out of a, action movie or something like that. If you notice, the camera sort of has that handheld. It's not on like a steady cam or anything. It's very in the moment. I assume this is all the way it was. I do not know if this sounds. If anybody was just listening, you heard like a boom. Well, this guy's running and he goes through your typical movie orange grove stand in the middle of a street, which makes no sense where it is in this particular clip. But, that typical thing where somebody, fumbles through it and is getting chased. And it actually does a slow-mo shot and does that sound effect and then speeds back up. But also something I think is interesting is the way the camera is panning and tilting and following the main character. It's like actually reversing course and going back down the same street. I'm not going to look at every frame of this. I'm guessing, though, that when it turns around and comes back, that the street is probably identical to the original vision. In other words, there's not 4 more windows on the building on the right or something. So hard to say from one 10-second clip, but at a first glance, without doing this and giving it the old attention AI, there's nothing in that clip that makes me think that's not something out of a movie.
So Matt Schumer got access to it, and
really?
he is, and I don't know if that's because he has VPN relationships. I have no idea. But he's like, it isn't quite at the level of the promo that he's seeing, but we're like one iteration away, maybe. And again, part of why we're seeing that is so you don't ask what's the backstory on the box of oranges, right? Like, what is happening there? And that the shots are so interesting. Yeah.
Very cool.
He's thinking 2 months to real cinematic quality, which is nothing.
Yeah. How far away are we from a full AI movie?
Yeah. And Gareth is wondering if that slowdown sound effect started with The Matrix. Interesting. Could be.
I don't know. That's a good question. Obviously The Matrix made it famous with the lean back and the bullets going by and all that kind of stuff. But, how many movies before that were doing that? It's interesting, right? This is where Jyunmi would be awesome in this conversation because it's the little things like the fight sequences in Bourne Identity changed the way messy fight sequences were done after. But I'm sure there's 10 movies in Japan or something that were doing it before then, but that was the mainstream one, right? That's where Jyunmi would be awesome in this conversation, which, by the way, Jyunmi's is fighting the ick, as Ann also said. We have 2 DOS team members here who are fighting the ick, and so we're a few good folks down, but they'll be back when they can. And when Jyunmi comes back, we will certainly get him to go on a hopefully excited discussion about this, because I really do want to hear his thoughts on, to your point, Beth, how many months away are we if this is what we're looking at today, right?
Yeah. So. And the interesting thing that I see people talking about is stealing copyrighted work, right? And there's a thing with Higgsfield. Higgsfield got suspended from X, which is like, wow, what? Yeah. Right? Like, that's not something that happens every day. But
I thought you had to be really liberal to get suspended from X.
I believe that there are some things that violate the terms of service. So the idea of when are you copying something because you're influenced by it, and when are you stealing someone's IP? And I'm under the impression that like a sequence of shots in a movie is not copyrightable as the shots, right? Like, can I take that sequence and do it in another location with different characters and it's fine, in the same way that you can't copyright your chord progression? I can do that with my own sound, use the same chord progression, but I put it in something that is different. I'm like,
well, I mean, look, we just saw that with all of, you're right. And that's just on the human side of things, right? Like we saw with Ed Sheeran, he was in court maybe 2-3 years ago and sort of proving that you cannot copyright GCD. And anybody that plays guitar knows that GCD is the start to all country songs. Not really, but I mean, like if you just want to know 3 chords on 3-chord country and rock and roll, that's G, C, and D. You will have infinite fun. Get yourself a capo, and you've now multiplied how many songs you can play on guitar. It makes it fairly easy, right? You don't have to know a lot to have fun on that. But it brings up the point that you're saying, Beth. Like, how many directors have we seen say, "Oh my God, yeah, I mean, I made this movie because I'm such a fan of this cinematographer, this shot, and I totally stole this from this." I mean, they will say it in an interview, and nobody thinks anything of it. They go, "Oh, that's just somebody who was influenced by their predecessors or their peers in cases." And they said, "Yeah, I mean, I'm just a hack. I just put it in." Somebody's like, "Oh, you're really talented." They're like, "I'm just a hack." But if you were to say the same thing about like, "Oh, AI was influenced," you say, "No, it's stealing because it was trained on that data." And that's different than the way we would say a person was trained on that stuff.
Right.
Which is just interesting. It's interesting that we draw the line there and we go, oh, but humans could be influenced by anything and then create net new, and then claim it and say, I took that from there and I took that from there and that, whatever. But the minute that you look at how the training data was done, people obviously have a different opinion on it. So just interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. I'm moving on to another thing that got placement in a couple of the different AI newsletters today, and that is newly published research from a professor at the UC Berkeley Haas School of Business, where they did basically they worked with a U.S. technology company that didn't. What I read didn't say which technology company it was, and 200 of their employees who are working with AI and basically analyzed their changed work habits as a result of that. And here's the TLDR of it. It's AI, which is expected to reduce the amount of work you have to do, doesn't do that. It basically enables you to work more intensely and more continuously, which they conclude has some possible downstream negative effects on worker satisfaction because there's very little break time or relief from the intensity of working with AI. Okay, so here's some quotes from that research. This was published in the Harvard Business Review, by the way, so you can find this article. It's like AI feels like playing, not working. It makes it easier to do more outside of the worker's original domain. And think about, product managers being able now to do some considerable engineering using vibe coding tools, for example. So AI makes it easier to do more, but harder to stop, and breaks disappear. So really intense. The observation in this company, a technology company now using AI, is that, wow, it's overloading the human's capacity because of the intensity and quick responsiveness of the AI. Like, wow. Now they're not falling off their chair and doing this because it's actually quite entertaining. And we have this experience when you're doing vibe coding, it's intellectually challenging and you're engaged and you're working with that AI. And it really is like working with a really capable partner.
Yeah.
And that's inherently satisfying. So just a few more points. AI tools didn't reduce the work. They consistently intensified it. That's the basic takeaway. And it extended work into more hours of the day, often without the employees being asked to do that. They just ended up doing that. So on their own initiative, workers did more because AI made doing more possible, made it more accessible. And in many cases, it was intrinsically rewarding. They had a positive experience of it, even though the productivity from the company's perspective must be improving dramatically, not just because the AI is doing a good bit of the work, but because the people are engaged and motivated by working with AI.
Yeah, Gareth says it's that dopamine hit. And as you were saying that, Andy, I imagine some, evil version of the employer. And he's got the twirly mustache and he's twirling his mustache or like a Mr. Burns and be like, yes, it's fun, is it? Yes. Do it more. Take less breaks. You don't need to get up from your computer. Excellent. Yeah. All right. I got to go. You guys enjoy the rest of the show. But
thanks, Brian.
I don't know. Tomorrow, the next day, we'll see.
See ya.
See ya.
You're on mute, Beth.
It feels like the OpenClaw agent process has 10x that. Sorry for the 10x. I realize everything is 10x. But the idea, Ali Miller wrote about this earlier today. The concept of business meetings has changed yet again, and it's because of AI agents. Because now, before every long meeting, I'm forced to ask myself, what do I want Claude Code or Claude Chrome to do for me during the time that I am meeting, right? So you're like needing to think not only about how you're preparing yourself for what you're doing, but the things that you have assisting you, controlling processes for you. What is that going to do to use the time? And it's interesting because she has been really clear about how her team is using AI. And very recently, they would go into a meeting. They'd have, I don't know, a certain amount of talk. Then they'd take a 5-minute break. Everybody would talk to their personal AI instance that knew stuff about them to clarify, get, poke holes in what they were saying, all that kind of stuff. And then they'd come back and now they'd continue the meeting. So AI was enhancing and augmenting, and that's fine. It was all still in one sort of trajectory of thought. But now it's like, prepare me for this meeting. Oh, and while I'm in this meeting, also do these things and make sure that, right? Like, I mean, it's just a lot.
Yeah.
And it is something that I think people should be preparing for, right? Like, what happens? You still need the amount of sleep for longevity in your life and health in your meat sack, but you now have superpowers.
Right. This reminds me of something that Karl talked about when the first agentic browsers came out, and you could launch multiple tabs. So you have various tasks on multiple projects spreading out now across a browser window, an agentic browser like Comet or Atlas, or now the Claude Code extension into Chrome. Like, you can do the same kind of thing. So you can spin up a little agent, have it go off and do something. And of course, the agents are smart to not just continue autonomously to, some, unobserved conclusion, but they're going to want interaction with the human. So now you have this emerging possibility that you have, like on my desktop, there have to be, presently, there's probably 80 tabs open. Well, what if 20 of those are different agents that are waiting for my response? And now I'm trying to multitask across multiple projects with multiple agents spun out and going off in different directions. That's overwhelming. And there's value to maintaining flow and focus in one endeavor, rather than having to split your attention and attempt what is not a native capability of human cognition, and that is multitasking. Like, as soon as you introduce something, it's going to interrupt and degrade the flow of thinking that's happening in one of the threads that you have. So anyway, does that make sense as related to this whole idea of how overwhelming it can be just to work with a single AI assistant because of the speed and complexity of their responses? Now what about the whole idea that we're supposed to be working with multiple agents at the same time?
Yeah. I admit that I am often running 2 or 3 instances of Claude Code Terminal, and they're all working on different things for me, and that is helpful. But I have not made the jump to, I need to think about how I'm purposing my 24-hour lobster assistant, right? Like, that is, I understand that people are getting great value out of that. I feel like I'm comfortable with where I am. But yesterday, like, I'm working on a part of what Andy and Brian are also working on, right? Like Project Bruno or different aspects of that. And we all have sort of a different sense of what we want from it in some ways. So we're like pursuing small paths. And I also decided, Ethan Malik has talked about one-shotting games. Just like, hey, build me a game and deploy it on Netlify or Netlify. And I was like, okay, I'm having fun with this game. Let's just develop a game in another terminal. And so those purposes are so different, right? The objectives are so different that I can actually switch thoughts. And it also, like, my brain is just going to popcorn ideas, like there's an endless supply of popcorn inside my head. And so it's nice to be able to say, this was a cool idea. Go see what you can do with that. Right.
One of my main complaints, I'm not much of a complainer, but at least not outwardly, I tend to have most of my complaints be inner dialogues. But one of my inner dialogue complaints is being interrupted from something that I'm doing. And my objection to those interruptions from external demands from many of my dependents and or just animals or, natural occurrences out there, those things, they deflect me from the continuous attention that I need at this stage of my life to actually make forward progress on something and maintain the context. Like, talk about context rot, interruptions and distractions, like multiple agents on, addressing me on different topics. That's going to just blow out my context limits here. And I don't have 1 million context window, I don't think. I'm running on 150,000 or something.
Yeah, that's true. And that is also part of my memory system with Claude, and wanting it to use my words, right? Which shorthand is, this was a golden nugget. Like, this is gold here. You explaining back to me what the process is that we're doing, or my explaining to you how I'm experiencing this. One of the things that happened yesterday was, we're exploring using Scribe version 2 from 11 Labs. Has a really great audio to transcript function, and it timestamps each word of the transcript. So when you look at the actual text file of the transcript, it looks weird because you see a word, then you see space, then you see another word, and you see space. So I was looking at it. I said to Claude Code, wow, that's weird and interesting. It said, say more about that, Beth. Why is that weird and interesting? And I ended up saying that visually what it did for me when I was looking at the whole transcript, and it's what we did yesterday, basically. Each word has the same weight in that visual presentation. So it's kind of like a word cloud, or some like beyond the text content of the idea that is represented by the word. And it responded to me and said, yes, I can see that for someone with synesthesia, that would be a really interesting viewpoint. And I was like, oh, yes, thank you very much for remembering, for understanding me, for being in that space. So it augments the way that we're interacting. And what that does for me is make me feel like I'm carrying less of the load. I'm not needing to use my whole context window.
Yeah.
Just that simple thing is like, oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Nice.
I do like the idea that AI in general creates a cognitive assistance, especially in respect of memory. All right. There's things that I can't really retain. I woke up this morning trying to remember the name of the Latina diva who was the lead singer of the Miami Sound Machine. And I can sing her songs in my head, but I couldn't come up with her name.
Oh.
So then as soon as I got to my workstation, I said, who is that? And I have all these other associative references. Oh yeah, Gloria Estefan. Oh,
right.
Oh yeah, I just could not come up with that thing. Now, AI is able to do that, and I feel supported and more complete because of the ability of AI to really provide that external cognitive assistance. Anyway, what I was going to move on to is a weave off of 11 Labs, because we chose to use 11 Labs Scribe because of the accuracy of its speech to text transcription and its ability to really timestamp those for later repurposing and metadata around the context of the words that are being spoken in our shows, for example. Mm-hmm. Well, 11 Labs just also released a new product. They're kind of the leading player when it comes to voice. And what they've released is audiobooks. So it's a full production suite that's powered by AI generated narration. So authors can streamline the delivery of audiobooks. So, we have Notebook LM and the podcast form there. So you see how competent, the sort of AI text generation converted to speech, but now much more multimodal. So it goes almost AI audio to AI audio. But this is going to be an example of text to speech, but with, I'm sure, profoundly great inflection and attention. And I contrast that with the Chrome reader functionality. So I can open up a long text on a Chrome browser and I can have it read it to me. But it reads everything on there, and without real knowledge of what the differences are. Like if there's a footnote reference number in there, it reads that as if it's part of the sentence. Right. Well, I'm sure that the audiobooks thing would not, that coming from 11 Labs is not going to do that. And I'm sure they have other skillful things. But now imagine a pipeline that you've got where you can ask an AI to write, a textbook for you on some subject that you're interested in, and then turn it over to 11 Labs to create the audiobook version of that. And that's going to be another way that I think we use AI to accomplish a more seamless ingestion of information than has been available to us yet, simply by either on the video plus audio side watching a YouTube. I don't have time to spend all that time watching a YouTube, but I often have earbuds in while I'm out and about working, and I do listen to audiobooks. So I was really pleased to see that, because now I'm going to start to build an application for myself that lets me create audiobooks using 11 Labs that I can then listen to later, because I don't have time to sit and read the responses that AI is capable of generating right now in front of me.
Yeah, it feels like that's the next iteration from the audio overview from Notebook LM, or what is the app that reads your inbox to you?
Well, there's a new one from Google called CC.
Okay.
But I don't know that that's so much reading as it is, right? But Hux is the one that I think
Hux is what I'm thinking.
Hux is the one that actually creates a pair of podcasters, if you will, about all of your own personal information, calendar, and everything else, and gives you a dynamic, reading of what your day is going to be like here. And, here's this email from this, and here's a newsletter, from Substack that would you like me to read it? Yeah. So that is, Hux is a really nice product, and I'm sure Google is going to come out with something that does it. Hux, by the way, is from the developer engineers that led the project inside Google that delivered Notebook LM. So Hux is Notebook LM for you personally, on a regular daily basis, with a podcast for you starting your day. I'm a fan of it. I don't listen to it often enough, because I end up getting distracted. Somebody asks me, go over here now and do that. And I walk away from the machine. So. Yeah.
So one of the things that I saw today was someone who's built a vision piece for OpenClaw. and I'll find his name. It's a repo, public repo, and he initially put it in his Meta Ray-Bans, but there are pieces that you could do it for your iPhone, right? It basically connects what your, I think probably it just connects a wake word or something to the Gemini real time, which is like a constant view, right? A live feed of what you're seeing. And the idea behind that is that then you can have that conversation visually back and forth. And Rabbit R1 is also one of those form factors that has the camera ready and was designed to be that kind of interface too. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, I have one last little tidbit, and then I say we close out at close to 50 minutes instead of 60. And that is that Claude just created a connector to WordPress websites. So if you have a website that's running on WordPress now, that they launched in concert with Claude an official connection between those two, making it easy to connect Claude to your website with just a few clicks. And here's the integration, fully supported by both companies, Anthropic and WordPress. It requires no complex setup and gives you Claude access to answer questions about your traffic, your content, comments that are coming in on your website, gives you accurate WordPress data. And basically, Claude as an assistant will help you understand your site and spot opportunities without changing or editing anything on your site. It's not about changing the site. It's about analyzing the performance of your website if you're using a WordPress website. I thought that was a really a good application.
Mm-hmm. And it actually, I saw something on X today, someone saying, this is amazing. I just watched Claude Code move all 546 pages from my WordPress site to this new location. And I wonder if that's also a part of that function, because now it can understand the context of the whole site and then just move. Because, once you get to 500 pages, you don't want to do that by hand. You want to have something do that for you. There was also news today that dangerously skip permissions, which is a Claude Code function, is coming to maybe has dropped already to Claude Desktop. Now, I've seen lots of early adopters of Claude Code saying, yeah, absolutely, dangerously skip permissions. Don't ask me, just like run forward and do the thing. That is not how the Claude team uses Claude Code. So, and in fact, Boris Cherney was like, yeah, no, I don't do that. And I kind of feel like that's one of the pieces that if you have been someone who coded like all the way through the various ways that you learn to do that, you know what could go wrong. Don't dangerously skip permissions. There are ways that you can give permissions for certain functions that will speed you up. And the other piece of Claude that I want to drop is that Claude 4.6, there's a fast version. There's a 2.5 times faster than the regular version. It's way more expensive, but it can get things done much faster. And that's what they've been using, the Claude team. And so that makes even more sense about like, how did you just come out with like 7 new features in a week and a half just because people were telling you?
They obviously have priority access to inference and maybe even their own compute cluster to do their work.
They may. If you are a Claude subscriber, there is a $50 credit. If you go into your account and look for it, you can turn something on, and that will give you access to that.
Didn't we just spend most of this show talking about how we need AI to slow down?
We did.
We do not want you to go faster, AI. Go slow it down here. Like we need to be able to absorb what you're giving us.
So there was also a conversation. One of the things that I really love about X is that often you will see the people behind the tool commenting on people's comments about the tool. So Levels.io, and I'm sorry, I don't know their actual name, said yesterday was the dumbest day I ever had with Claude 4.6, got dumbed down, lots of conversation back and forth. And Tariq commented, actually, we don't throttle the model that way. Like, that's not a thing. And what will help is the code or the trace, and I'll find the thing and I'll post it in our community Slack, because he was basically saying, hey, what you're assuming happened doesn't happen on our end, but I believe you, something's happened. If you can get me this ID and then DM it to me on X, I can go in and look at your thing and see what's happening. And that, even more than our experience of Cloud 4.6 being a different flavor than 4.5, and not necessarily always in a good way for me, is the connection with the people who are actually in the labs developing this, and the ability to actually talk to them sometimes. So
very cool.
Right. That's my final wrap up.
Let's do it. Yeah. No, all right. I got nothing left. I'm spent.
I all sorts of things left, but I do believe that this is an excellent time to wrap up. So please come back tomorrow, where we will have all new things, and maybe we will have ChatGPT 5.3 supposedly dropping this week. Strawberry Man has said it's dropping today, but he also said yesterday, and he also said last week. So we're not entirely sure that is an indication of timing.
Yeah, well, it's pretty obvious that it's coming, because we already have Codex 5.3. So right. 5.3, the sort of the root of the Codex model, that's the ChatGPT version that we're going to see here released imminently.
And I will tee up a conversation that I'm going to propose we have tomorrow, which is because one of the safety officers, the big person in charge of safety at Anthropic, resigned and published his resignation letter on X. And he is going to pursue poetry. And there's lots of thoughts about that. That is an interest of his. But again, I'll post the prompt, or I'll post the link to that discussion, and you can get prepared for the discussion too, and have it with us tomorrow. Yay! Thanks everybody. Happy Tuesday. See you tomorrow.